Hello, my name is Heartclaw. Welcome to my first public video on YouTube. Today we'll be discussing my first ever D&D, Dungeons & Dragons, Homebrew race. For those who don't know what D&D or Homebrew is, D&D is a classic tabletop role-playing game where you make a character of class, race, alignment, etc. with a party of friends to go on a campaign or one-shot adventure with a DM at the helm, a dungeon master, who is a game organizer / god of the game. A homebrew is a custom unofficial content created by players or dungeon masters, such as unique monsters, spells, or entire campaign sentence. Original official D&D content is produced by Wizard of the Coast. This will be my first. Now, 2 disclaimers. First, this channel isn't fully about D&D 24/7. It's just for me to post things of multiple discussion of my interests when I have time, or to advertise my upcoming independent projects like my superhero horror comic I'm making at an unspecific time this upcoming October called Bistro. Currently still making the revision script for that as we speak. And second, and the more explicitly and important disclaimer related to this video, is that my homebrew race is highly recommended for experienced players and dungeon masters since it's, spoiler, very complex. There are set limitations to the usage of natural abilities unlocked later on, so to make it fair, but some abilities are very powerful, campaign-changing, driven, etc. Also, this is not perfect and doesn't account for everything since that would be a lot for me to do, and thus the DM can remove and even add things to this race for the particular campaign. It's also recommended that the player who wants to play this race in secret, as we'll discuss later, should discuss in private with the DM about it beforehand to avoid being a nuisance for them and the other players and become someone with not all true and selfish main character energy, thus ruining the campaign and or friendships with players, especially if used abusively and obnoxiously in every campaign, which the DM can just choose to have the following race not even be a playable one, or even an important assisting NPC, non-player character, and instead as a cute little cameo or something else to add spice to your world and lore. It's not recommended every single time of use to avoid redundancy, and again, annoyance. That's the last thing I need, especially since this would be completely out of my control, and I don't want to be the reason for that particular situation ever. So please, play respectfully and responsibly. Dungeons & Dragons is for everyone and should have its story be enjoyed by everyone playing in a hopefully safe environment. Enjoy, and now, onto the discussion. Picture this, in a tavern, or village, or even a jail cell, or wherever the campaign begins or is currently at. A new player's character enters the roster of the party's campaign unannounced, and is just established to be there now. Nothing too out of the ordinary for a D&D sesh, even for beginners, since anyone can play and join with their character ready, without necessarily any integration to the main plot of the story by the DM. However, something in particular is off about their character. In appearance, they look like any other race, gender, class, etc., but things take a strange turn when after your party's characters stay a while in their presence, and eventually ask who they are, the said character stated by the player doesn't have a backstory, which, okay, isn't too out of the ordinary either. Not every player needs a complex backstory or any simple one either. However, when I say no backstory, I mean nothing. No background details, no hometown, no families, no friends prior. They don't even know why or have any memory of how they are here with you in the first place. Even the DM, possibly looking towards you and the said player, confirms this for you and the rest of the party, making the crucial detail that this is odd, even without stating such. All the player character's response they can think of is, I just felt the urge after meeting with you guys, the party, to simply venture for the sake of it. I don't know why. And that's not all. With them is an odd-looking artifact, either a staff, blade, locket, etc., that they have no idea how they got in the first place, and seems to be bound to them, as it never leaves their side. When other party members try to remove it from their grasp, it feels heavier than lead, and can even be dangerously hot at times when touched. That's not all. They even have a strange foreign intuition, as they can read any language. Explained simply, the words just make sense to me. And finally, the most damning piece of information and evidence on top of all of this is, at moments of damage once a day, they can seemingly use their reaction to habit as their body briefly and mysteriously turns into colorful pixels, for no reason that it can be easily explained. If you and your party are experiencing this, you have encountered the rare and unusual race consisting of 2 in one universe, one male or female or whatever, known as the SNV, Survey Amalgamation Variants, avatars of the multiversal deity known as Dice Venturenko, a glowing being made of dice with multiple ever-changing eyes and colored fingers who is all races, classes, and alignments with all abilities maxed out, unstatic and ever-changing personality and perception by the roll of the dice. Especially when in conversation with other smaller deities throughout the multiverse and mortals, whose only static goal is to, with permission of the being who makes the particular world and universe they wish to participate in that moment, and with their place restrictions, temporarily remove all their memories and live out a life they randomly selected in an avatar that's static, known to being half goat, snake, machine, crab, bug, and crystal humanoid with 4 eyes and patterns all over its body, including a dice symbol randomly placed on their body by their selected alignment. With hair, gender, skin tone different in every universe that, until hitting a nat 20 a number of times, is in a disguised race with their traits already established and the stated random agent item or artifact. In their classes, also randomly selected. They live out their life normally until encountering or being near proximity of the party by miles away, to which they instantly spawn near them with no memory even of the life they've lived before. Yeah, whoo! This is crazy, right? Well, it's about to get crazier. Let's go over the basics. This is a massive flavorful homebrew race project. To make it table ready, I will break this down into modules. We'll start with the core player facing stats and the disguise phase, then move to the powers and DM backend mechanics in the next turn, and etc. First off, It's a disguised race as discussed and is randomly selected by either DM and or player playing said character, and that it affects their size and speed, which depends on what race is selected as a disguise. Its ability score, however, increases by +2 to one stat and by +1 to another. And its languages, though depending if the DM allows them to just read any language in said campaign as we discussed, can obviously be, if not allowed, common and one exotic language like Celestial, Abyssal, and Draconic. Cool, right? As we also discussed at the start of, or whenever you in particular, with the DM's permission, begin playing as the said race of a campaign, have no memory prior to being in the party for the sake of mystery, other than the urge to venture. You and or the DM roll a manifestation roll, which means rolling on a spawn table we'll discuss later to determine your assumed identity, like, if not mentioned already, gender, race with all included racial traits of the disguised race, and the class, as well as a character alignment. This also includes their background, which also always is selected either randomly or personally by and only by the DM, which, mind you, the skills from said background are still applied to your character with the help of the DM without telling you why you have these bonuses, of course, but your character and you have no idea what the background is, and that can affect the story later on. And, as discussed, you gain all the glitch traits to read any language if allowed, and the multiversal flicker a day in the game that halves your damage to your character. Nothing too complicated, surprisingly just a few steps to take when playing S&V. However, that's not gonna last long. Sorry. Now we'll be discussing your true form, as it is a ticking clock triggered by luck. It's best to keep a tally of how many nat 20s, 5 to 10 depending on the DM, you roll over the campaign, as your disguise will shatter permanently. Your true form has the animal characteristics we discussed, as well as vibrant hair and feathers of any color, reptilian features, and patterned eyes. With a height of 96 inches in apex, but can also, once in this form, can shrink to a compressed form of their disguised race prior as a bonus action. Its age is mostly ageless, with the looks of an ancient and yet also a newborn all at once, if that makes sense. Now to discuss its true form mechanics. First, you lose your disguise race traits, but you do gain an AC 13 plus dexterity natural armor, gain a 1d6 plus strength by attack, gain 10 feet true sight, and finally, artifact awakening. Your bound item weapon gains a natural magical bonus, a 1+1 to spell DC. Now,
This will be more of a doozy.
as your avatar grows, they tap into the deity's ability to bridge worlds. Again, the DM can remove some of, if not all, these abilities for a particular campaign if too much to handle or doesn't fit. First off, level 3, dimensional pull, items. After 1 day long rest, you can pull random non-combat items like a flashlight, communicator, instant pack, etc. from a sci-fi, modern, horror, or any other genre of a world. Then you go to level 5 dimensional pull, combat. You can now choose to pull temporary weapons like a laser pistol, chainsword, etc., or a confused creature or creatures like a security drone or raptor, etc. These vanish after 1 minute, particularly weapons, while creatures may require a 1d4 rounds. Some basic stuff, not too campaign breaking or busted, however, not the case for the next 3. Level 7, Multiversal Rift. Once a day, you can open a permanent portal to a random world, Cyberpunk, Wasteland, etc. Or even, and this is the interesting cool part, you can open a portal to a legacy world from a DM or party's past campaigns. However, when it comes to sealing these portals, that's the risky thing. You can use an action, a DC 15 charisma check to close the rift. However, on failure, the rift becomes volatile, and something or someone can immediately jump through. Then we get to level 10, Council of Avatars. After 1 long rest, you can summon a 1d4 plus 1 randomized variants of yourself, unique class, race, alignment pairings. They can fight alongside you and can even give multiversal advice, granting advantage until the end of combat or story arcs as long as the DM decides so. Now, the last and most powerful ability. Oh boy, buckle up. Level 15, Chronos Glitch. Once a campaign, you can save at a certain moment in reality, and you and the party can play through a future simulation of the adventure onward from there for particularly the entire campaign, until, however, you and your entire party dies. Once that happens, time snaps back to the very moment of activation. Only a natural 20 wisdom save allows a player's character to keep 1 item or memory for this now future alternate timeline. So, yeah, only use this if absolutely necessary. Now that all sounds busted and would realistically not be allowed ever in a campaign, not even a one-shot. However, though we'll now be discussing how this can still work without ruining a session, and it doesn't even require for a DM to remove any ability, though, again, you can still do that if you want. You see, every time you use the powers and abilities that we listed already too frequently, you risk destabilizing your physical form, possibly both of them, boy and girl variants, permanently. The glowing sigil is a glowing dice symbol that we discussed a few times already, that appears on your body in a particular location and certain dice depending on your character alignment. 1 paradox point, your sigil glows dark purple. 2 paradox points, your sigil glows hot pink. 3 paradox points, your sigil glows dark crimson, bright red. The avatar is at its breaking point. The stability check, when you use a power, roll a d20, levels 1 to 4 gain a paradox point on a 1 to 3, But levels 5 to 9 gain a paradox point on a 1 to 2. Levels 10 plus gain a paradox point on a 1. Recovery and removal, it means levels 1 to 4 paradox points only reset upon death and reincarnation, which we'll discuss more later. Levels 15 plus, a 6-day rest period downtime, clears all points. Levels 18 plus, long rest removes 1 point, and 3-day rest clears all. Now we're on to 6 paradox implosion. Deletion. If you exceed 3 paradox points, the avatar implodes. That avatar, male or female, is permanently blocked from that campaign. The D&D Zeiss cannot remanifest that gender of avatar in this universe. Once detonation is active, every creature and character within 30 feet takes fierce force damage, levels time 2. However, for everyone else's sake, the SCV can do a final vow, an action where you say the following in order to make sure that allies have temporary HP that shields and prevents them from the damage from the blast. The vow being, the venture continues, only the vessel changes. Alright, now we discussed the limitations for said abilities. Let's discuss both the final few things and most importantly, the obvious elephant in the room I have had to discuss in detail. How the flip does reincarnation work in D&D? As stated, Zeiss exists as 2 avatars per universe, but only one is usually active as the player character. The second randomized avatar by the DM would be secretly acting as an NPC somewhere else in the world. And here's the kicker, when your current avatar dies and is deleted, you immediately take control of the shadow NPC, which inherits a natural 20 tally from the previous one, which means if the first had 4 nat 20s, then the new one only needs 1 more to hit their true form awakening. Once the player takes control over the new avatar, the DM generates a new randomized shadow NPC to wait in the wings till the other dies, or the DM wishes for the other 2 avatars to collide in the current storyline in the campaign. Speaking of which, let's discuss what happens when the avatars collide. Number 9, the paradox conflict redundancy check. The multiverse dislikes duplicates. If 2 avatars, boy or girl or whatever, or the summoned variants occupy the same space, the S&V's player must make a DC 15 charisma saving throw. The failure leads to you and the other variants entering a violent fatigue for 1 minute, instinctually believing the other use and vice versa as anomalies and viruses and must be killed. However, if you succeed a saving throw, you will thankfully resist the urge but remain nauseated, disadvantage on ability checks within 60 feet of each other. So yeah, another huge risk to using your multiversal powers alongside the set, though changeable, limitations. And now we're at number 10, the offspring, the venture blood. If an S&V's avatars have a child or children with immortal or even immortal beings in the universe, the child or children will be most of the time the mortal or immortal's significant other's race, and it has their abilities, but has the multiversal flicker trait. The offsprings can even have an inherent trait feature that allows them to lift the parent's artifact. Fun fact, if the S&V's parent is deleted from their 3rd paradox limit point, the D&D Zeiss can eventually respawn near this child, ignoring the permanent block rule once. However, if the said parent implodes, the child might be pulled into the rift unless the final vow is spoken. So yeah, be careful of that. And yeah, that's pretty much everything. Wait, crap, I still got... This is not exactly everything, but it's the best tables I can think of at the moment to share, so you can use them if interested. First, the manifestation table, new avatar generation. This table is for making your random generated disguise race from rolling a d100, and the number you land on, from 1 to 100, that determines the gender, race category, and class category. If you land on a 1 to 45, your gender is female with race category in common, which includes human, elf, etc., and your class category will be martial, like fighter and or rogue. If you land on a 46 to 80, your gender is male with race category in uncommon, which includes tiefling and or gnome, and class category will be a caster like wizard and or bard. If you land on a 81 to 95, your gender is non-binary with a race category in rare, which includes Aasimar and or Tabaxi, and class category will be divine and or primal like cleric and or druid. If you land on 96 and beyond, your gender is fluid and static with a race category in exotic, which includes warforged and or owlin, and class category will be artifice and artificer. P.S. As I stated multiple times now, this can be changed and have stuff taken in and out of it to where you feel comfortable with it. Now onto the paradox sigil table, based on character alignment. Roll a d10 and that will decide your sigil and archetype. If you land on a 1, you are lawful good with a d12 with location on the chest. If you land on a 2, you are natural good with a d10 with location on the shoulders. If you land on a 3, you are chaotic good with a d6 with location on the palms. If you land on a 4, you are lawful neutral with a d8 with location on the forehead. If you land on a 5, you are a true natural with a d20 with location on the back. If you land on a 6, you are a chaotic neutral with a d4 with location over the heart. If you land on a 7, you are a lawful evil with a d percentile with location on the leg. If you land on an 8, you are a natural evil with a regular 6-sided die with location in the eyes. If you land on a 9, you are a chaotic evil with any dice you yet used on the ton. If 10, it's any alignment and dice yet used. And now, finally, let's discuss 12, the final ending, the eternal adventure. Crap, I'm almost out of time. Okay, my channel's not verified, so I have to get for this quick. Zeiss and his avatars, in case it wasn't obvious, are literally a manifestation of us, the player and the character in Dungeons & Dragons. And the applied ending, which you can use or not, it's up to you, it's totally fine, is that at the end of the campaign, the surviving avatars eventually at their old age will die, and through Zeiss will be reincarnated into the next universe and adventure, the next campaign. It's all a metaphor for the players, the entire party move from one story, game, etc. to the next. It's kind of poetic, isn't it? But anyways, that's all I wanted to discuss in this video, my first. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a comment for what you would and wouldn't keep for this character and your personal thoughts. Subscribe, ring the bell, I guess, and I'll let you guys guys know when my comic will come out in October. Bye!